brought to you almost live from the Dude in the Basement Studios. Why? 'Cause that's where the good stuff is. It's Sips, Suds, and Smokes with your smoking hosts, the good old boys. Suds, Suds, Suds. It's time for more Suds.
Welcome, everyone, to another Suds segment. I'm one of your hosts, good old Gal Julieanna, and joining me at the table today is good old boy Sean.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
And good old boy Dave.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ooh-hoo.
Hello.
Was your pinky up when you said all those words?
Up where?
It begins.
So it begins. And we're like, what, 2 seconds into it?
Sure.
Nice. Recently we started a new series, and we call it Beer Club.
Beer Club. Beer Club.
It's kind of like a book club, but instead of everyone reading a book, I mean, who wants to do that?
Stupid books.
We listen to an album, and instead of discussing it over coffee or tea or whatever the heck book club people drink,
Crap.
we each pair the album with a beer.
A beer.
Then we drink the beer.
Ooh.
Oh, we talk about our feelings and stuff. And
I'm sad.
That the beer's gone?
Yeah. He needs more beer in him. Stat.
Well, actually, we talk about the beers and the album. Besides, you only have two feelings. Feeling drunk and feeling full, remember?
Sometimes I get felt up. Is that...
Nah.
Oh.
Good old boy Sean, you picked the album for today's episode, so why don't you tell us about it?
Alrighty. Today's album is Talking Heads classic from the late 80s, late 1980, October 8th, 1980.
It's sometime in the 80s.
Sometime in the 80s, in the late 1980s. Remain in Light, which, reading up on what went into this album, definitely learned a few new things in terms of how few chord progressions there actually are in a lot of these songs, and is how repetitive a lot of stuff was, and also what you think are loops are actually them just mechanically playing the same stuff over and over and over again. So even though we were in the early days of the samplers, there's no samplers on this.
It's all people.
It's all people playing.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Brian Eno produced this album, and and it wasn't without some controversy. A, with Brian Eno producing it again, and then B, there was definitely some fractures in the Talking Heads, and Chris and Tina had kind of off doing their thing here and there, and at one point I think Tina was wanting to leave, and anyway, instead came this album and kind of breathed some new life into Talking Heads.
Pretty funky album.
Funky and just very exploratory. I think this album and then the album that we're going to discuss at another episode that both have Brian Eno connections, a lot of tribal beats and whatnot, but unlike Paul Simon's Graceland, where it's very much in your face, this is the rhythms of Africa. They somehow don't, appropriate.
Well, it's just all feels very organic, and it's just kind of part of the picture.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get more into that in just a minute, but good old boy Dave, why don't you quickly give us the Suds ratings, and then we'll get on to it.
Yeah.
We'll be discussing and rating these beers with these Suds ratings, plus our signature belching sounds. Here are those ratings now. Signature.
Sounds.
Yeah, these are patent pending. Don't copyright infringe me, bro. A rating of a 1. That sucks. Give me anything but a bud. 2. Was that a belch? 3. Ah, what a relief. Give me shivers. 4. A body should really not make that sound. And 5, listen to that hang time. Give me another.
Okay, well, let's get on with it. Now, we can't play any clips from Remain in Light. Boo. But we encourage you, our wonderful listeners, to check it out yourself. Vinyl always is the best option.
Indeed.
Indeed. But you can also stream it online on one of your online streaming services.
Sure.
Platforms.
Where you stream things.
Yes.
Or if you're me, you rip the CD into Apple lossless. I still have the CD for the record, but yeah, and then you can just stream it to your stereo in lossless format and enjoy all, the Talking Heads the way they were meant to be, just full fidelity.
Yes.
Bootleg.
But vinyl is definitely the preferred format.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Of course.
sure.
Okay.
All right.
Well, Sean, tell us a little more. Kick it off.
It's your show, buddy. Make it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this album, by all accounts, was an instant classic, right?
Completely.
The reviewers just were, I think, pleasantly surprised. It was a natural progression for Talking Heads, but no one saw this coming.
Oh my gosh. Well, dare say, I don't know when Graceland came out, I guess in comparison.
I think that would have been like 84, 86.
Okay, so it was even later.
Yeah.
So this was the beginning of this whole melding of cultures way of presenting music. It wasn't so boxed in like it had been prior to that.
Well, and there's several references where hip-hop has hit and is affecting the Talking Heads in some way, shape, or form. Not necessarily directly, but there definitely was, I think, Curtis Blow was referenced at some point as inspiring some of the lyrics in some of the songs. So, you're also talking about a band that has been listening to a lot of funk. Burning Down the House was based off of a Parliament show. So, obviously, Burning Down the House on a different album.
But a lot of funk in there.
Yeah.
And when they're talking about this, they're talking about how he struggled with the lyrics. And
Yes.
so there is some inspiration from like old school hip hop and different, just the way the kind of stream of consciousness on some of it.
Was it Izimba? On one of their previous albums, which is all Dada. It's all made up words and whatnot. That was definitely a starting point for a lot of these songs too, in terms of trying to come up with the lyrics and whatnot.
Yeah.
So,
True that.
it's really interesting to read about how this came together and how much they incorporated that was very new and cutting edge at the time that had not been heard before.
Oh yeah.
And it's still just an amazing album in terms of every time you put it on, there's new stuff you hear every time, and there's a lot of density to it.
Well, and it still sounds fresh even after all these years. You know, I have to admit, it's been a while since I listened to this record, and when you mentioned that this is what you wanted to talk about, I'm like, oh wow, dude, like pulling off the cobwebs. And it's almost like I was listening to it for the first time again.
Yeah.
Because compared to what's out there now and what's dominating your streaming platforms, this is such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I felt like I was listening to it for the first time.
Because you were.
Oh, thanks for calling me out, dude. Rude.
And, another pat on the back for this record is that in 2017, the Library of Congress deemed this album culturally, historically, and artistically significant, and it's selected for preservation into the National Recording Registry, which isn't something that you're going to have on all records, no matter how profound they are. I mean, it's not like every one of Bruce Springsteen's records
is going to be there,
or any of them.
Not
rude.
Banned once again.
You watch what you say in front of me.
I know. He's the boss.
In so many ways. But yeah, and then on top of that, knowing that Adrian Belew even played on this record.
Well, and then the crazy part is that it sounds like almost everything he did was done in one day.
Of course, because that's Adrian.
I mean,
He's
mad props to a genius there, but Also, just to read that it really kind of changed the trajectory of the album after he came in and laid down some of these guitar parts. And that is always the part that, like, blows my mind every time I listen to this album, is listening to his guitar work on there. It is just so out there. There's so if you're familiar with Sonny Chirac at all, definitely a lot of just this dissonant, just guitar noise for the sake of guitar noise, but it is so beautifully done, and it's so fun to listen to. And there's always just again, very dense, very layered, and just complex, but yet sometimes it's just noise.
Yeah, true. But for what this was, okay, so 1980, and this was in the days that King Crimson was like somewhat playing it safe with their records. There was the red, blue, yellow phase of life. Okay, this is honestly, the way he's playing to me reminds of like Thrack and Thrack Attack and all this stuff from the 90s. Like, he's kind of ahead of himself in the grand scheme of things, which then goes to show how wonderful King Crimson is.
And somehow this became a King Crimson episode.
Hey, I'm always going to...
Let's make sure we cover Bruce Springsteen and King Crimson during the Talking Heads episode.
Okay, I'm throwing down the mic. I'm good. Right. Now for the rest of the day.
Well, let's throw down some of this beer.
Yeah,
yes.
What beer did you bring to pair with this really colorful record?
I don't think I got any.
Oh, where did it go, Dave? Where did it go? It's going into Dave's hand as we speak. We are for the listeners out there. We must give you the full picture here. We are not drinking this beer from the can. We are drinking from a can that is very monochromatic. It is very, very black and silver.
Yes.
So I found myself in the beginning of July up in Stowe, Vermont.
He just happened to find himself.
I just happened to find myself in Stowe.
And after having a pleasant dinner at Von Trapp Brewery, I made my way down to the Alchemist and bought my allotment of Heady Topper and Focal Banger. So today we are drinking Heady Topper. I figured Heady Topper, Talking Heads.
Sure. Perfect.
The other thing is for the record, this beer was canned on June 29th.
1980.
And I have not been able to keep it cold. I've been able to keep it at least at room temperature since.
It's still nice.
So just painting that picture for the listeners out there, because some of you all are very purists, and if the Heady Topper's 2 weeks old, it's out of date. We can't have that.
This is just beautiful.
It does not get old.
No, it does not. And so perfectly, like the record that doesn't get old and kind of, breathes new life into itself and into your soul every time you listen to it. This does the same thing too.
Yeah.
This may not be necessarily the trendiest beer right now in the universe, but it still packs a punch and is gorgeous.
But it's also the beer that set the trend and
started the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, it did.
All you hazy boys up there.
Well, it is. It's hazy. It's creamy. It's a little dank. There's all of the flavors. Like your palate just comes alive.
It's got that bitter backbone, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Brings
we'll
it all
be
together.
back with more in just a brief minute.
It's not just the destination, but baby, the whole elation of riding down this lover's avenue. As slow as a willow blows, or as fast as the whirlwind grows, we glide beneath the stars in cobalt blue. Look to the left, to the right, keep your eyes on the road, my darling, wondering if we're only passing through. Open roads and open windows, my hand is yours forever, sweet love. Our eyes ahead on these back roads with a view.
Welcome Welcome back, everyone. So, for today's episode of Beer Club,
Beer Club.
Sean picked a great record, and that record is...
Remain in Light from Talking Heads.
Sean also picked a great beer to go with this record, and that beer is...
From the Alchemist, Heady Topper.
The original New England IPA.
Yeah. Right. Well...
Big shout out to the Alchemist people. The first time I was up there, the inside was not open for customers. This time it was open, and they had Heady Topper on hand pull.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So if you think this beer is nice and got some nice creaminess to it, imagine just
that velvet texture.
yeah. Yeah.
And and Kimmich is like the perfect person to know. I mean, maybe he's cocky at times about his beer. I don't know. You could hear rumors you can hear rumors all day long. But I love his sense of purity for what it is that he's brewing.
Yes.
And that he hasn't screwed around with the recipe at all.
Yeah.
And again, from the first day that this was released up until now, he has not wavered at all. I mean, we all know that this is an expensive beer to brew.
Yes.
But he's still doing it.
The quality control is there.
Oh my gosh!
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I feel like I'm in Vermont. When I drink something like this, I feel like I'm in New England. And could you imagine a lot? Like, no wonder everyone has a happy smile on their face.
Yeah.
Wherever you go in that region, it's
because they're all high.
Well, yeah, high
on
and
great beer.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Okay, so what would we, like, as if there's any question, we are going to rate Heady Topper from The Alchemist a 5.
Good job, Sean.
Banger's gonna bang.
I know, right? Good boy, Dave.
Yes.
What did you bring today?
So the beer I brought is from Garden Path Fermentation in Burlington, Washington. So not Vermont. A different Burlington. And not the coat factory. This is called the Wet Hopped Ship. And it is a 5.2% wild ale. They have fresh Skagit-grown hops were added to hot wort. That's sugar water. Pre-beer is what we call it. Wort, which was chilled overnight in their cool ship. Then it was fermented in an open-top foudre and blended with barrel-aged beer. And then finished naturally conditioned on honey. So a lot went into this beer.
Yeah.
A lot of really funky, different little things went into it, which kind of reminded me of that album. Like we were talking about all the different little techno things they did, some of the African beats, like some hip hop writing style, the prog rock guitar boy who jumped in there, all that stuff. Is
Wow.
Look, man.
Prog Rock Guitar Boy. That's not a band name. That's
Wow.
like,
or it should at least be an album.
yeah.
Yeah, Adrian Ballou, Prog Rock Guitar Boy. He put that on his business card.
He might.
He should.
I'm sure there was an
might
American
get some
Express
more-
commercial with him on it.
He might
years
get some
ago.
more work. So, but anyway, so I thought it was kind of funky and cool, and I wanted to bring it and share it. And so let's just try it and see what we think.
I'm like smacking my lips because
Yep.
there's so much going on here.
Yeah, there is. And all in a good way.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely
Right.
tart,
Yes.
funky. You get some of the wood.
Yeah, you're getting some tannins there
Yeah.
too.
I think you get some of the honey.
On the very end, it's
Yes.
like a sweetened wood funk flavor, if that makes any sense.
I'm not necessarily pulling out a lot of hop flavor.
it's fleeting for me. Like there's moments where I'm like, okay, that's hops, but the sourness definitely kind of dominates any sort of hop.
But then, honestly, with the fresh hop beer, unless
Usually,
you're having it like the
right
day
then.
it was
Right.
you're not gonna.
How old is this beer, Dave?
Yeah, couple years.
Couple
No,
years,
but like
at least.
with fresh hop beers too, like you kind of want to make it and get it in the can
Yeah.
or sealed up wherever you're going to put it as fast as possible. And it sounds like they took this through some different steps and everything before they canned it. So I don't know that fresh hop is maybe the best. I don't know if this is the best use of fresh hops, but I will tell you, just as a beer, this is very tasty.
It is, and it's very layered, and it goes really well with the record, I think.
Yeah.
I think this was a really good choice.
Yeah. Excellent choice, sir.
I was not familiar with this album before Sean recommended it. Obviously, I know the Talking Heads. But for me, the Talking Heads is a band that I've always liked, maybe not loved, and I usually just follow the hits. And I think the big hit off this one was Once in a Lifetime, which is a great, great song. Really, there's, people get weird about, oh, you only like the hits, you don't like the deep cuts. Or like, well, there's nothing wrong with liking songs that are very popular. That just means a lot of people liked it.
The other thing is for a number of us in the Gen X era, your college CD collection definitely had Talking Heads' greatest hits 1 and 2.
A lot of
that and the Violent Femmes,
Yeah. I think that kind of thing does a disservice to bands. I mean, I get it. It's like a marketing thing. Like, well, we'll take all of your biggest songs and put them on one CD.
Yeah.
And so guys like me, that's what I'm going to go for.
Right. Because I'd have to look. I don't think anything else from this album is on those greatest hits, and that really does a disservice to this album. And it's part of the reason why it was years later that I discovered what was going on in this album and what was happening. Now, that said, Talking Heads had always been a part of me from burning down the house. I have vivid memories of going through my uncle's record collection when I was like 6 or 7 years old, discovering he had the Talking Heads, and he has the album that's got Burning Down the House on it and whatnot. And so, it's kind of like, wow, cool. My uncle was listening to this stuff. Maybe I should be listening to it too. And how cool is my uncle? Because he is listening to this stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
My uncles did not listen to Talking Heads.
Neither did mine.
Did your uncles listen to like old Russian folk tunes or?
Polkas.
Sure.
Russian choir music.
Nice.
Or I should say Orthodox choir music. Yeah. And then I'm totally envious of what you grew up, like what you had around you. The only way that I found out about like current music was there was a guy that lived across the street from me, and his older brother was into records. His older brother was older. I mean, like, I think he might have been like 8 or 9 years older than me. So he already had the Columbia record thing going on, and he was into all the bands that were like the rock bands that were current. So that's how I started to know what was going on in the universe. Because if I was left to my parents, the only thing I would know is the Letterman, Doris Day, and classical music.
Yeah.
Not necessarily during this album, I don't think, but like a little bit later on, then MTV comes along.
Yes.
And, bands start making videos, and like that's a whole other avenue for people to kind of get to get
exposure.
See. Yeah.
Oh, sure. And you remember the video for Once in a Lifetime. That was like...
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, yeah, so, I was lucky enough, St. Louis, for those that remember, there was a station called KHTR, and they called themselves, I think, a hot format, but basically they played anything they thought was cool, and so it was Talking Heads, it was a lot of new wave, but you'd hear Michael Jackson, and then they played American Top 40, so on the weekend, so you got this whole
nice hodgepodge.
Well, radio stations weren't as genre specific all the time there for a long time.
Yeah, because I definitely look back at a lot of bands that I know because of that station. It's like they were one hit wonders, but they got airplay on that station, and and it's kind of But yeah, and then you've got all these nice compilations that are like, hey, here's the one song off of that. But it's like, boy, did you, going back to our earlier point, you don't realize what you're missing if you just have the Talking Heads greatest hits, because
there's a lot of cool songs,
yeah,
that maybe just the A&R guy said, no, we're not going to release this as a single.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this beer.
The Wet Hopped Ship.
Yeah. What shall we rate it? Okay. Going with the 5.
Oh, wow. Wait, you said 5?
He said 5.
Sean said 5, everybody. So.
You're showing happy hands.
I was leaning 4, but Sean said 5. So.
Yeah.
This is his show.
This is Sean's show.
We're just in it.
It's all bangers. It's all bangers.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah, no, that's a really nice choice, Dave.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, especially coming off of a heady topper onto something sour. It's
to just cleanse the palate
yes.
and prepare for more.
Yeah, so what are we drinking, Juliana?
Okay. I am not going to lie, but I am a fan of a brewery that's down the street from us. But when I say down the street, it's really like far, 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 far down the street.
It's actually on a whole different street, and you have to go through about 7 different streets.
But it's from Barrique Brewing and Blending in
Awesome.
Nashville, Tennessee, and it is their Grisette, which they have in cans.
Nice.
That they've recently, I think this came out when CBC came
Yep.
to town.
Okay.
This
right?
was one of their special releases. Holy smokes, man.
So, a Grisette, by definition, is probably one of the lightest table beers that one would find in Europe. Okay, this thing is beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, and for it being so little, it's not so little.
No.
In the scheme of things.
How little is it?
How little is it? It is
little?
3.9%.
3.9.
That's perfect.
It's little. It's little. But
It
you might be
smells so
tiny,
good.
but you still can be mighty. in
Maybe
the
one
scheme
day
of
it
things.
becomes a 4, but right now it's a 3.9.
It's young.
Well,
It's young. It's growing.
So the thing with Barrique is that all of their beer touches wood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Too much information.
It does. But in a good way.
Oh, it's a very good way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You taste the wood, but you taste the beer and you
Yes.
taste the yeast, and it's everything that's proportional but still a little funky, and it's just funky enough, like
Yes.
this record.
Yep. Yep.
Which, it just brings, again, I know we've waxed poetic about it, but it brings back so many memories. And honestly, my favorite song on the record is Cross-Eyed and Painless.
Yeah.
Not that...
Is it about you? Do you feel like it's...
Well, it's about a guy losing his mind. So what are you trying to say, that I'm losing my mind? Sure.
I was just making fun of your eyes, but...
Oh, well, thanks. So this was recorded on the islands. And again, like, this cracks me up because they were in the Bahamas recording this, and then they were in Philadelphia recording this. You can't get two more completely different spaces
Yeah.
than all of this,
Yeah.
you know? And then when they recorded it, Chris... So Byrne was having issues with some parts.
Yeah.
And-
And then also he was having a hard time trying to be creative in New York.
Sure. But anyways, Chris recommended, hey, why don't you start rapping this?
Yeah.
And like, really, I mean, it was a revelation for me. I mean, honestly, because he did it well, and he did it like in like 1 or 2 takes that he got it perfectly, which just cracks me up. Then, I'm going to hit you with a little knowledge. So, Tony Basil was a popular choreographer at the time.
Yeah.
And it,
Hey,
for those of
Mickey.
you that don't know, she did the Oh Mickey,
Hey, Mickey.
Yeah.
or Hey Mickey. Yeah.
She's pretty
Or it's
talented.
Oh Mickey. Well, anyways.
Yeah.
She is rather talented, but as a choreographer, she was like the precursor to... What's the girl that's been on like the shows?
I don't know.
Paul Abdul.
Oh,
She's like a precursor to Paul
Yes,
Abdul.
absolutely.
So she actually recorded or did the video for this song that
Okay.
sadly didn't get a lot of airplay because MTV didn't like it because the band wasn't in it. They just used some dancers that Tony was using for maybe her own stuff or whatever.
Well, and MTV always knew what was best, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it's not that song completely resonates with me, Dave, thinking that I'm losing my mind, but I just thought it was really interesting because it blended so many different genres together.
Yeah.
But it works so well.
Sure.
Yeah. Like this beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The beer works so well.
So
and
well.
is so yummy.
Love it.
So, what shall we rate the Grisette from Barrique? Oh,
Sean
they
said-
are all
Sean
bangers
said.
today.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is a 5. And that is going to do it for another great episode of Beer Club.
Beer Club.
Yes. Good old boy Sean, thanks for picking this record, and thanks for coming out and hanging out with us.
Oh, it has been a pleasure, and happy to share some Heady Topper with you all. And yeah, and it's been good talking about this album. I had put it down for a few months, and it's always in a constant rotation for me. So it was like, all right, let's crank it up on the stereo and really get into it and drink some Heady Topper and train for this moment.
Yes.
They're
Good old boy
putting in the
Dave.
work. Yeah, we're putting in the work here.
We are putting in the
This ain't
work.
easy,
And
folks.
It's not. It can be a struggle at times.
Yes.
This is good old Gal Juliana. Thanks for joining us. Keep on chuggling, and catch you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're listening to us online, do yourself a favor and tap
Just tap it in.
the subscribe button.
Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, tap-a-roo.
The easiest way to listen to our show is to ask Siri, Alexa, Google, Uncle Larry, or whoever it is that talks to you on your phone. Play podcast Sip, Suds, and Smokes. We love your feedback, and you can reach us at info@sipsudsandsmokes.com. Our tasting notes flow out on Twitter and Instagram with our handle @SipSudsAndSmokes, and our Facebook page is always buzzing with lots of news. You'll also be able to interact with the thousands
Millions and millions.
of other fans on those social media platforms. Do us a favor. Take the time to rate this episode if you're listening to us online. That's a big help to us, and we get to see your feedback as well. Come back, join us for another episode, and keep on sipping.
This has been a one-tan hand production of Sip, Suds, and Smokes, a program devoted to the appreciation of some of the finer slices of life. From the Dude in the Basement Studios, your hosts, the Good Old Boys, will see you all next time.